I remember when it hit me that I could make money from my land with me not being there. The year was 2020. I owned 3 acres of land that I bought in upstate New York for $15,000. I was living in New York City, making pretty good money working at a large tech company. I was super happy that I owned this land and was right about to build a cabin, but it hit me. What was I going to do with that cabin in that space when I wasn't there? So then I realized that I could rent it out. So then I decided to make money from my land by renting out my off-grid cabin by building a glamping business. If you don't know these 5 things before you started your glamping business, you're most likely gonna fail, or you're gonna wish you never started this business at all. I learned these things the hard way. It took me a long time. I've compiled them all today because I wanna save you guys time and money. Let's dive into it. The first tip that I have for you in starting a glamping business is you have to disassociate yourself from the property. You no longer own it. Let's take me, for instance. I bought my land in upstate New York for $15,000. I bought 3 acres of land. I loved it. It was like my prized possession. It was my baby. It was my carved out piece of the American dream, the American pie, right? But the second I started to allow strangers to not only stay on my land, but pay me money to stay on my land, it was no longer mine and mine alone. See, I literally rented it out. When they were there, for the most part, it was theirs. So now let's talk about how these things manifest and how they can actually affect you. Like, a good friend of mine owns a Glampsite in Western New York. Their site is even better than mine. It looks better, it's performing better. I love their Glampsite. They dealt with issues with their first maybe 1 to 5 guests, constantly bringing in dirt and grime and other things like that from outside. Now, true, if you have a glamping business, most of the time, your structure, your A-frame, your tent, your teepee, what have you, it's gonna be in the wilderness. But still, just seeing somebody not take the care of taking their shoes off before they enter the space, or wiping their shoes on the doormat that you provided for that exact reason, these things will drive you up a wall. Again, back to my own personal experiences. I've had people do the strangest, weirdest things. They move the outdoor furniture. Sometimes they drag in dirt as well. I've seen people touch the walls for some reason, and since they're untreated, like raw wood, pine walls, if you touch it with water or oils, it's gonna stay on for a little while until I sand it out. These things are gonna happen. You have to understand, it's like if you're a parent and you allow your teenager to drive your car, they're gonna put a couple of dents in it. So unfortunately, we have to just admit that and accept that. So it's much easier if you find peace and solace with that. Another big pro tip though is, as you save your money, you have money coming in, you might be paying a mortgage, you might be paying for your overhead conditions and all of that type of stuff. The overhead at my Glampsite is really only 2 things: the bathroom setup that I have cleaned out professionally once a week, as well as the Starlink Wi-Fi that I provide to my guests. Now, you have these overheads. What I would do is save a little bit of money yourself as money is coming in. Just every time you get paid, maybe 10% of every booking, 5% of every booking, put that into a rainy day fund. And at least once a year, spend some of that money just to reinvigorate and bring your Glampsite back to life. If you have a bell tent or a really awesome tent at your Glampsite, be honest. When was the last time you washed it? Now, my goal with this video is for people who don't have glamping businesses. I want them to kind of keep their head on straight, but you glampers out there that already own glamping businesses, be honest with yourself. When was the last time you really took care of your space? Now, the second thing that you need to completely understand to make sure your glamping business doesn't fail is realize and completely own that you are now firmly planted within the hospitality industry. A lot of people who start glamping businesses start them because they really enjoy the outdoors. Maybe they like hiking, maybe they like camping. Some people get into glamping businesses because they are architects or they're general contractors who can build these really cool structures that people would pay top dollar to sleep in. Most of the time, people who start glamping businesses don't have experience working in hotels. You are not just only in the service industry when you start a glamping business, but you are firmly planted within the hospitality industry. So you need to accept everything that comes with that. A perfect example is my best friend purchased a brownstone here in New York. It was a multi-unit property, and he had one of the units listed on Airbnb. I was helping him out with that, helping him be successful, helping him set it up, the whole 9 yards. His Airbnb unit was making way more than all of the long-term tenants that he had in his building, but he still shut his Airbnb down. And the reason being is he absolutely hated being in the hospitality business. He hated having people reach out to him at odd hours. He hated having people give him negative feedback about his place. He hated that he had to pretend to smile in someone's face when he wanted to tell them to blank off. So you need to think about those types of things before you start a glamping business, before you buy land, before you rent land, before you buy a tiny house. All of those things need to be considered. And that is, do you have the disposition and the personality to work in the hospitality industry? Can you smile when you don't want to? And are you also a good communicator? That is one of the biggest things. And that is a big reason that people get really negative reviews on websites like Airbnb, because as a host, you really need to be there for them and to ensure that their experience goes as best as possible. The third thing your glamping business will fail if you don't do is go beyond the hospitality industry and realize you need to also cultivate an experience. People go glamping, and I don't mean camping. People go camping because, I don't know, they hate life, they hate showering. I don't know. I really don't understand camping. But people go glamping because they want an experience. They want to go to a destination. It is glorious camping. So you need to think about, how come someone is willing to pay you so much money to stay in an off-grid cabin? How come someone is willing to spend $120 to sleep in a tent? They're not looking for an average experience. They're looking for something that they can't get elsewhere. So while you're setting up your Glampsite, while you're thinking about what will you build on it, what will you put on it, and also while you're thinking about what will you put inside of the structure that you rent out, you need to be thinking about what is unique, what is an experience. I wholeheartedly believe Airbnb as we know it, 1-bedroom apartments getting listed out, it's just dead. But people will always pay top dollar for a unique experience. And that's what glamping is. So instead of just buying a regular tent off Amazon, maybe you buy a $3,000 Bell tent. Now that might sound like a lot of money, but that is a super unique, Instagrammable type of thing that people would want to stay at, spend money on, take pictures in front of, share to their friends, go viral. You need to be thinking about those types of things. Even back in the day, before I went all in on glamping and unique experiences, when I was renting out a 1-bedroom apartment, I made sure to have weird and fun things in there. I had the office bingo. It was just a weird thing that I saw online. I bought it and people loved it. I also gave them a Sega Genesis console, a classic Sega Genesis console for people to relive their childhood, tap into a little bit of that nostalgia. Those are the type of things that I constantly saw on my reviews. People loved it. The last thing I want you to understand, or your glamping business will fail, is that your product is not for everyone. When I started my glamping business, the number one person who told me it is a dumb idea and it is not going to work out is my father. And I don't hold him accountable or anything of that sort. It's just my father hates nature. He doesn't understand why anyone would pay money to sleep in an off-grid cabin, or pay money to shower, outside underneath the stars. To him, it just doesn't make any sense. He only would spend his money on a luxury product. I'm not mad at that, and you shouldn't be either. The reason that glamping will take off, and the reason that glamping is actually here to stay, is that reason particularly. It is not for everybody, and the people it is for love it. They cherish it. Those are the people that leave amazing reviews, and those are the people that also stay at your Glampsite more than once. They'll come back in the fall, they'll come back in the winter. They want to see it under different seasons. So understand that and almost lean into it. Don't try to go right down the middle. Make a unique experience that you're willing to disassociate from and say that you don't own it. The people that stay in it do. Make it for them. Fully understand that you're in the hospitality industry, and make sure that your product isn't for everyone. Kind of lean into that. Make it for a specific type of individual who would love it. If you do those things, your glamping business will not fail. It will actually flourish. If you want more glamping business tips, or you want to learn how to buy land to start a glamping business, check on the videos on the screen right now.